I congratulate each one of you for taking some time to be a part of this webinar. See, the topic in which we have chosen for the presentation of views is on human rights and sustainable development goals. Perhaps, as you have already been understood, what are human rights? What are the contents in it? How, what manner human rights should be taught? And moreover, if rather I would say, being a teacher, perhaps you might have taught many things on human rights, sustainable development, or environmental issues, what not. Can you see this slide?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is it visible?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Visible.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Let us understand each one of them from a different dimensions are concerned. One minute. Yeah. When you talk on human rights, of course, much has been discussed. I think nothing is left out to me to talk on human rights from a different perspectives. Of course, human rights are nothing but basic rights, natural, inalienable, integrated, instrumental, intrinsic. Sometimes they are fundamental in character. They have, in fact, taught us how to live on this Earth planet. Since time immemorial, we have been, in fact, talking on human rights from different perspectives. Yeah. So with these few observations, if rather I would say, I can start with right to equality. So what is right to equality? Perhaps you might have heard about it on the basis of Article 14 of the Constitution of this country, and even in some international covenants, especially International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights 1966, International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights 1966. Much has been discussed on these issues. When there is a fairness, obviously equality shall also be verified, vice versa. Reciprocity is one of the major observations when you are implementing sustainable goals at the municipal level. Of course, no doubt, when you are actually emphasizing on human rights, there are many conflicts, unresolved issues. How will you overcome them? It's very difficult. Whether men are first, women are first, military necessity is first, or humanity is first, egg is first, hen is first, plant is first, or seed is first. It's very difficult to be answerable. However, we have had conflict resolution. So without conflict resolution, it would be possible to resolve some of the disputes between ourselves. So a conflict between haves and have-nots, that is there all over the world, not only in India, cutting across the world. You are emphasizing haves are always targeting have-nots. Have-nots are always expecting something from a have. So that is there. When you have got money, you are going to exploit somebody. If you don't have any money, you will be exploited by somebody else. So that would be an order of the day. You cannot change it. Although you have had as many as the specific legislations, constitutional dimensions, and international covenants. So in an international scenario, much has been discussed on human rights. It was because of efforts made by few like-minded people, especially John Humphrey of Canada, Rene of France, and rest of them have already been outspoken to understand human rights from different dimensions are concerned, be it civil rights, political rights, economic rights, cultural rights, or solidarity rights, whatever you have already been learned in this discourses, especially in your refresher course as such. No doubt in it. So I'll be actually dealing with some specific criticisms leveled against to this Sustainable Development Goals 2015. And you can have some questions on these issues. I'm actually very much interested to be answerable to your questions from different observations or some understandings. So the conflicts are plenty when you are actually understanding these goals. Why these goals have come in? What are the reasons to have it? And what are the challenges you have, conflicts you have, problems you have, or perennial, comprehensive, or extensive issues that we have in them in understanding these goals 2015. See, I have come across some queries in understanding these goals based on human rights discourses. Then what is the right to development? Who are the right holders and duty bearers of right to development? What is the status of right to development in international scenario? Is the right to development justifiable? What is the relationship between right to development and other human rights? Take for an example, civil, political, economic, or cultural, what not. This is what, Karl Vasek, former director of UNESCO, in fact, he was the only one who could classify human rights into 3 generational models. Civil and political rights should be called as for first generational human rights. Social, economic, and cultural rights should be called as for second generational human rights. Then third generational human rights, which are actually taught on the basis of right to development as such. So that's why, in order to understand these goals, obviously, if rather I would say, these goals have come in with a view to understand socio-economic and cultural issues of a human being all over the world, irrespective of the fact that, say, why these goals have come in. There is a story of mankind. Please understand here. When there was a war, big war in Europe, 30 years of war, that war had to be called as if a religious war. When there was a religious war, the entire society was actually frustrated to understand their rights. So that's why they put an end religious war by making, Peace Treaty of Westphalia, 1648. When there was a peace treaty was actually going on, in fact, Hugo Grotius, father of public international law, came out with some concrete solutions based on de jure belli actas. I mean to say that war and peace. So when there is a war, there is a peace. When there is a peace, there is a war. That we should understand. I mean to say that, peace, it does not mean it is an absence of war. True. However, peace means justice. See, access to justice is one among human rights. This is what V.R. Krishna has already been spoken of. Even on the other hand, a former chairperson of NHRC, National Human Rights Commission, in fact, he has emphasized by saying that poverty that itself is a violation of human rights. This is what the sustainable goals are actually overemphasizing, to eradicate poverty throughout the world. Even in India, we had such kind of observations on the basis of Indira Gandhi's approaches on eradication of poverty. Garibi Hatao, perhaps you might have gone through it, how in what manner the poverty shall be overcome in future. So in this context, in fact, there are some more queries in understanding these goals. What is the role of international cooperation in the right to development? What is the relationship between the right to development and global governance? So what kind of governance you have with a view to implement them at the international level as such? On the other hand, what is the significance of right to development in the context of 2030 agenda, the sustainable developmental goals and related process? In other ways, is the right to development relevant to contemporary developmental context? That has to be verified. On the other hand, what is the role of United Nations and the Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights in relation to right to development? And what are the main challenges to the realization of the right to development? And how can the right to development be implemented and monitored at the national and international level as such? So these are the a few queries shall also be answerable to the entire society as a whole. Of course, no doubt, when you are actually running with these queries, obviously there were many philosophical foundations were emphasized in understanding what is to be done and what ought not to be done at the national and international level as such. See, what is right to development? This is what Amartya Sen has emphasized. Right to development is nothing but economic development. You have to understand well-being of people, standardization, how people are living is very, very important. This is what even Article 55 and 56 of UN Charter 1945 have already been outspoken. So based on Article 55 and 56 of UN Charter 1945, in fact, Economic and Social Council was actually emphasized. So based on efforts made by these organs of UNO and its specialized agencies, we are talking something on human rights from different dimensions are concerned. See, before 1945, we had just theories, practical implications in understanding the human rights of a human being all over the world. It was because of efforts made by United Nations organization and its half-century enactments. If it's a half-century enactments, we are actually talking on human rights from a different perspectives are concerned, be it women, children, orphans, socially, economically, and culturally, they are marginalized from different perspectives are concerned. So when we are actually running with these, obviously, no doubt in it, we have to understand these goals even from the perspective of the conflict resolution, how, in what manner conflict resolutions should be looked into. Look at wolf theory. So wolf is actually standing before sheep and asking, wolf, a sheep, I have a right to food. I want to kill you. Then a sheep, replied politely, my friend wolf, however you might have got right to food, but I have a right to life. You cannot kill me. This is one of the major observations we have when you are actually running with a right to equality and the fairness as such. How do you understand the right to equality and fairness? To give an analysis over right to equality and fairness, I have come across it, one of the observations. Please have a look on. Take for an example, a guy who has left a will to his two kids, isn't it? See, when he died, in fact, his elderly brother called and asked him to share, whatever it is actually left out by their father. Okay, there are two things. One is a blanket, second one is cow, then third one is tree. When his father died, elder brother called younger one. Look at, see, we have to understand equality. So where there is an equality, there shall be fairness. The equality and fairness should go hand in hand. So with these few observations, 1 minute, I'll come back. So in this illustration, I would like to share with you that elder brother should have actually called him to share a blanket, cow, and tree. What he did, what he did, he said and called his younger one, do one thing, I'll take front one, back one, you take, front one. Then when the question comes into picture in connection to sharing of a tree, then he asked, I'll take upper one, you take lower one. Then when the question comes into picture in connection to sharing of blanket, do one thing, I use blanket in the night, you use blanket in the during daytime. Look at, see, from the point of view of understanding equality, you are right, but fairness is missing. At least he should have called his brother to share milk, fruits, a blanket, isn't it? So that's why I must share with you, whenever you want to talk on these issues, first of all, you have to understand what is right to equality and fairness. Perhaps you may have gone through Article 14 very well. What does it say? It does say, like should be treated unlike, unlike should not be treated like. Equality before law and equal protection of law, they should go hand in hand. All are equally footing. This is what I have known on the basis of Chinese philosophy. Lao Tse and Confucius philosophy, they are actually overemphasized. All are equally footing. No one is actually above the law. Even king also the law and God. This is what we have already been emphasized. Nobody is actually superior or inferior. All are equally footing. You have to grow naturally how plants and trees are growing. This is very, very important. And they don't require any support from anybody. They develop accordingly. They grow accordingly. That has to be looked into whenever you want to go for understanding the right to equality and the fairness as. So in this context, of course, the Wolf theory and the illustration in which I have gone through may be fundamental in understanding the right to equality and the fairness as such. Of course, no doubt, before fighting in a First and Second World War, there were many issues and challenges all over the world. To overcome all these, in fact, United Nations organization came in with all its efforts. When you look from the perspective of UN Charter 1945, kindly go through a preamble of UN Charter. It starts with we, the people of United Nations, states that themselves united to determine to save the succeeding generation from the scourge of war. And it urges that there shall be international cooperation and mutual coexistence with a view to promote and encourage human rights and fundamental freedoms without distinction with the race, sex, language, and religion as such. So in this context, in fact, all these purposes and principles of UN Charter 1945 are actually overemphasized in almost all the covenants in which you are running to understand the human rights from a different dimensions are concerned, be it a UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, then the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights 1966, then International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights 1966, Vienna Action Plan, and rest of them have already been spoken of in understanding the protection and promotion of the human rights of human being. This has to be looked into. The rise in inequality in the distribution of income among the people all over the world. So that is there. As I said, see, inequality is actually worse, especially in Indian context as such. Though we have had as many as a specific agencies to understand equality, inequality is actually prevalent, especially country like India. That is what I would like to share few thoughts based on few observers. According to Leo Tolstoy, he says, one of the first conditions of the happiness is that the link between man and nature shall not be broken. There is a closest connection between man and nature that shall not be broken. When there is a conflict between man and nature, obviously science and technology will be answerable to the question. And on the other hand, when there is a conflict between man with other men, obviously the politics will come and help you. So these are the aspects you have. And on the other hand, if you have got some issues on your own, even I have got my own problem. How can I resolve my own problem? So based on yoga or meditation or spiritual activities, I can overcome my own problem. These are the conflicts are actually vitiated when you are actually running with the human rights from a different dimensions are concerned. How will you overcome these issues? What kind of conflict resolutions we have? That's very, very important. And in the meantime, how long you can keep the same problems? How long? And how long you are going to question the earlier history? And moreover, if rather would say, why human rights have come in? It is because of historical injustice and practical denials. It is because of these reasons all human rights have come in. They are within you. With my view to understand your social, economic, and educational issues are concerned. So that's why I must share with you when you are actually running with this. Obviously, one of the statements given by Franklin D. Roosevelt shall also be looked into. A nation that destroys its soil destroys itself. Forests are the lungs of our land, purifying the air and giving fresh strength to our the people. So in this context, the protection and preservation of human environment is a matter of both acceptability and survival of our social system. That culture has to be looked into. See, you have to accustom to the custom of the law of nature. Otherwise, the law of nature will take retaliation and reprisal against a human being. So in this context, I must share with you, all people who are actually running with human rights should understand the natural law theory. So without natural theory, it would be virtually impossible to retain with human rights of a human being all over the world, not only in India, cutting across the world. So in this context, of course, as many as theoretical observations have come in to understand what is right to development and the environment. Of course, no doubt, people have already been outspoken that these observations should go hand in hand. You know, right to development and environment, they should go hand in hand. Any contradictory, and subsidiary issues, obviously, there is a room for discussing these issues. That's very, very important. There is a platform to understand a clash between right to development and the environment as such. See, the people who are more emotional on environmental law, perhaps they might have come across with as many as theoretical observations and practical implications. Take for an example, polluter pays principle, sustainable development, intergenerational equity, common but differentiated responsibility, benefit sharing, common heritage of mankind. This is what Arvind Parado of Malta had already been outspoken before a General Assembly in 1969. So based on his own observations, common heritage of mankind came in. And along with the continuity of these principles, we have a precautionary principle and many. So with these few observations, when you are actually running with right to development, these are the restrictions are supposed to be verified and looked into. Otherwise, it would be virtually impossible to retain or entertain goals that are widespread at the international level as such. So before I'm going to deal with these goals, it would be pertinent to understand what had happened earlier and why these goals came in. What are the reasons to understand these goals shall also be verified. In fact, in 1960 and 1970, this is what Asif Qureshi in his book, International Economic Law, emphasized by saying that, especially in 1960 and 1970, there was an awareness among these developing countries. I mean to say, developing countries started questioning developed countries. See, earlier what happened in 1962, in fact, when General Assembly came out with a resolution on permanent sovereignty over natural resources, then so-called developed countries took undue advantage to overcome this resolution. When there were many debates on the basis of a new international economic order. When there was new international economic order, it was widespread all over the world, and there was a room for discussing certain issues between haves and have-nots, or developed or developing countries. So they sat together and decided to have some principles to overcome long-standing issues between haves and have-nots, or developed or developing countries are concerned. See, much has been actually discussed in understanding what shall I say, new international economic order as such. When there was widespread issues on a new international economic order, obviously challenges were plenty. So $1 million of the questions raised at the international level. There were many gigantic, complicated, or comprehensive issues which were vitiated in the light of right to development as such. What is the right to development? This is one of the observations shall also be verified through 1986 declaration as such. This declaration was actually coined on the basis of purposes and principles of United Nations, Charter 1945. See, with a view to satisfy the interest of UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, this declaration came in 1986. Then the Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, and of the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights 1966. These declarations came in with all developmental observations. See, when you are actually running with the right to development, one should understand self-determination. What is a self-determination? This is what I have understood being a student of public international law. Right to development means it is the right of the people to determine their own sovereignty. You can have sovereign power over your natural resources. Nobody can question them. But the fact that when you are actually running with the history of doctrine of self-determination or power over the natural resources, the earlier notions were different. When you are actually dealing with Carl van Savigny's approaches, in a historical approach, or the Hugo Grotius's understandings on the right to property, whatever you had property out of king, that property had to be called as if stolen property. It is because of human rights and other freedoms you are actually overcoming the old antecedents and barriers are concerned. So in this context, I must share with you, when you are actually running with these right to development, they have got their own variables in the sense that you don't find uniformity among the nations when you are actually running with the right to development. It depends on their economic conditions, it depends on social conditions, cultural conditions, and many. So with these parameters, obviously, why the right to development is actually widespread at the international level. Obviously, no doubt in it, concerning that the elimination of the massive and flagrant violations of human rights of people and individuals affected by the situation, such as those resulting from a colonial, all forms of discrimination, aggression, and national sovereignty, national unity,
Sir, voice
what would contribute to the establishment of
voice break.
Maruthi sir. Maruthi sir.
With these few observations, yeah.
Sir, voice break ಆಗ್ತಿದೆ.
Sir.
ಹೌದಾ? ಈಗ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ?
ವಿಡಿಯೋ ಸ್ಟಿಲ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಸರ್.
ಹೌದಾ? ಅಲ್ಲ, ಕೆಲವೊಬ್ರು ಮ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ, ನನಗೆ ಸೌಂಡ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಹಾಗಾಗಿ. ಈಗ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ?
ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಿದೆ ಸರ್.
ಇವಾಗ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಸರ್. ಈಗ
ಆಡಿಬಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲ? ಓಕೆ ಓಕೆ, ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಲ್ಲ?
ಎಸ್ ಸರ್, ಎಸ್ ಸರ್.
ಯಾ,
Yes, sir.
okay. Then what is a sustainable development? How will you understand sustainable development? What are the contents in it? This is very, very important. See, before I'm going to deal with 17 sustainable goals established at the international level, it would be pertinent to emphasize on certain vitiated issues in this context. Otherwise, it would be virtually impossible to understand sustainable goals are concerned. See, especially country like India, it's very difficult to implement these sustainable goals due to several issues in connection to social justice, economic justice, political justice, and many more. Look at one of the cases decided by Bombay High Court, Prakash versus Prakash Cotton Mills versus State of Bombay. In fact, MC Chagla emphasized that without social justice, it's very difficult to interpret the law as such. On the other hand, V.R. Krishnaiyer emphasized that, social justice can overcome inequalities in the society. On the other hand, former Chief Justice of Supreme Court, K. Subbarao, also emphasized by saying that, in order to have just a society, social justice shall also be looked into. From the perspective of understanding these goals, you have to understand local issues. Otherwise, it's very difficult. India is known for its multiculturalism and ethnic pluralism. Different kinds of issues we have, atrocities we have, and flagrant violation of human rights we have. It's very difficult to be estimated. Even our NCRB reports are also overemphasized. They are documenting every day and night. So how many atrocities are there? How many flagrant violations of human rights are there, especially a country like India? You are just targeting every one of them. You are targeting women, children, orphans, and many. So such being the case, how can you implement these goals into the municipal law? This is very, very important to understand how, in what manner these goals shall be implemented at the local level. So before I'm going to deal with this, obviously, one could understand what is a sustainable development. This is what Asif Qureshi has emphasized in a book, International Economic Law. He says, sustainable development is a broad and evolving term embracing development and environmental objectives, as well as protection of civil and political rights. Thus, the principle has been stated to include the principles of trusteeship of the earth resources, intergenerational rights, protection of flora and fauna, respect for land, maximization of the use of natural resources while preserving their generative capacity, and the principle that development and environmental protection should go hand in hand. This is what he has emphasized. So on the basis of these factors, the principles derive from various aspects of international law. See, that cannot be ignored whenever you want to go for understanding sustainable developmental goals and the environmental context. So it deals with the human rights, state responsibility, environmental law, economic and industrial law, equity, territorial sovereignty, abuse of rights, and good neighborliness, because all states are equally footing to understand these. Of course, no doubt, whenever you want to go for understanding these goals, some say, yes, these goals have come in on the basis of a soft law, which cannot be enforceable before the court. What is soft law? It's very difficult to be answerable to your queries. However, soft law is not actually legally binding. Many of them might have said in this way. It is an expression of preference. Non-compliance is not actually considered a violation of a violation. However, failure to observe can lead to certain consequences. Although soft law is not strictly a law, it has many positive assets. Soft law can shape opinion and practice, and thereby assist in the formulation of a general international law as such. See, whenever you want to go for understanding these parameters, please have a look on soft law and hard law. Which are hard laws and soft laws? That has to be verified. Otherwise, it would be virtually impossible to understand the right to development and the environmental issues are concerned. So in this background, what kind of goals we have? Look at one of the first goals of sustainable development, the end poverty in all forms everywhere. See how, in what manner you are going to overcome poverty all over the world. So what kind of resources we have to overcome poverty? That's very, very important. And on the other hand, end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. This is one of the second goals in which you are running at the international level as such, and ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all in all at ages, isn't it? Even elderly people should also be benefited when you are actually running with a right to health as such. See, due to paucity of time, I may not be able to move towards some constitutional checks and balances. If you just peep into the fundamental rights and directive principles of state policies of the Constitution of India, you will have known how, in what manner, right to health is actually overemphasized, especially in the local level as such. Ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunity for all. Of course, very recent, national education policy, 2020, has come in to understand these parameters. And on the other hand, we have a Niti Aayog. This is also one of the steps taken by central government to implement all these, no doubt. And on the other hand, achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. See, especially in India, it is very difficult to be answerable to these goals, which are highly widespread. See, when you are actually running with the problems of women and girls, country like India, there are so many issues and challenges are vitiated, especially crimes against women are many. Look at the rape, domestic violence, sexual harassment, acid throwing, reproductive coercion, female infanticide, prenatal sex selection, mob violence, honor killing, dowry violence, forced marriage, forced prostitution, and forced abortion. These are the major challenges we have country like India. How not manner these goals can be implemented, since you are finding all these issues which are highly widespread, especially country like India as such. As far as NCRB report is concerned, 4,15,786 rape cases were reported across India between 2001 and 2017. And an average of 67 women were raped every day across the country during these 17 years. In other words, about 3 women had been raped every year, while 16,075 cases of rape were reported in 2001 as such. This data is actually alarming, moving like anything. See, what kind of action plan you have? It's very difficult to be answerable to these queries. We have data, no doubt in it. NCRB report is actually pertinent to understand the flagrant violation of human rights of women, country like India, no doubt in it. So what kind of action plan you have? There shall be cultural change in the society. Without cultural change, how can I understand these issues? So that's why you have to have some action plans based on cultural change. The food style, lifestyle, the patriarchal mindset should also be changed. Then you have to have some counseling and mediation center to overcome these issues. And you have to empower women, and there shall be some job opportunities to be given to these people, and the promotion of a healthy lifestyle of these people shall also be looked into. She is in fact highly marginalized, vulnerable, and weaker. So why laws are favoring women, especially country like India? It is because of historical injustice and practical denials. It is because of historical injustice and practical denials. Women are actually protected, especially country like India as such. So why I'm sharing all these, when you are actually running with the 5th goal, to achieve gender equality and empower all women and girls. So look at the India's position. It's very difficult. Delhi is known for rape issues all over the world. That has to be looked into and verified. And I leave you. You are a better judge. Judge what is right and what is wrong based on human rights discourses are concerned. And to ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. So that is there. And to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all, irrespective of the fact that, and promote sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, full and productive employment, and decent work for all. This is one of the hypotheses I have in my mind. I don't know how, in what manner this hypothesis shall be reachable to all of you. See, when you are actually living very closer to high temperature, you find high fertility. When you have got high fertility, obviously a population will be increased. When there is high population, obviously problems are quite common. This is what one of the major issues and challenges which is actually highly vitiated when you are actually promoting and encouraging human rights of these vulnerable sections of the society as a whole, vulnerable sections of the society, or highly marginalized sections of the society, or retracted from the society as a whole. See, in India, let me share with you, India is known for its actually Gramya Bharata. As far as 2001 census is concerned, we had 650,000 villages. That's what I said. India is known for its Gramya Bharat. In Karnataka, we had 29,000 villages as far as 2001 census is concerned. And on the other hand, 3,000 streets and tandas we had earlier. They are actually overemphasized in understanding this. And moreover, if rather I would say, when you are actually running with law of the land, first of all, you have to understand how people are living here. This is very, very important. You can define it. What is India? Isn't it? See, based on your geographical definition, perhaps you might have defined it. So in north, you find Himalaya, south, Hindu Sagar, left and right, Bay of Bengal or Arabian Sea. In between Vindhya hill stations you have. So that's your geographical definition. First of all, you have to define what are the new challenges we have, which are highly vitiated country like India as such. Look at the marginalized sections of the society. Even today, they are living at the darker side of the society as a whole. Though we have had the constitutional checks and balances, we have had as many as covenants at the international level as such. This has been emphasized on the basis of many critics in the field of international human rights law. What they say, there were more than 3,500 documents which are actually addressing human rights all over the world. Though we have had all these covenants and constitutions of the world, the flagrant violation of human rights are plenty. It's very difficult to be answerable. Look at 2020 Hathras case, very recent case, especially in Andhra Pradesh. It's very difficult to be answerable. No doubt in it, there is a room for discussing all these issues from these perspectives. And moreover, reduce inequality within and among the countries. How will you overcome when there is a conflict between Easternization and Westernization? How will you understand Easternization and Westernization? When you deal with Westernization, Westernization has come through on the basis of Christian philosophy. Your Easternization has come through on the basis of Islamic faith. In between, there are some isms to understand their own issues. No doubt in it. When you peep into the jurisprudence, be it ancient jurisprudence and modern jurisprudence. In ancient jurisprudence, see, they were uncodified. All these commentaries were following accordingly. Look at Yagnavalkya Smriti, Manusmriti, Nadasmriti, Vedas, Upanishads, then many things. They were uncodified. There was no parliament to discuss all these issues. Now you have parliament based on constitutional law of this country. There is a room for discussing all these. That's why I must share with you, when there are gross violation of human rights, there is a way out to overcome. This has to be looked into based on your rights. And on the other hand, J.S. Mill, what he says, your rights have come through on the basis of the value of utility. On the other hand, Karl van Savigny in Germany and Henry Maine in United Kingdom, what they say that Your rights have come through on the basis of cultural variables. Cultural variables. It depends on soil. It depends on weather condition. It depends on the climatic conditions. So based on these, you have designed it, and you have given an autonomy to decide what is to be done, what ought not to be done. I mean to say that each state is a supreme in eye of law. It can pass any legislation, amend any legislation, and repeal any legislation. Such a kind of an autonomy has already been given under Article 2, paragraph 1 of UN Charter 1945 as such. So in this context, I must share with you, of course, no doubt, how in what manner these goals shall be looked into and to be understood. This is very, very important. And how in what manner you can implement them at the local level. So this is to be looked into. And on the other hand, of course, no doubt, how in what manner these goals are different as compared to world history. Take for example, it could be based on a new international economic order, or OECD models, or on the basis of a Declaration on Right to Development 1986, or Millennium Developmental Goals, especially 2000. See, as compared to these goals, of course, sustainable developmental goals are actually readily available to overcome long-standing issues of the human being in almost all the countries of the world as such. So that's why, how are these? These sustainable development goals are different because they are universal in character, transformative in character, comprehensive in character. They are inclusive. They do have their own inclusive policies to understand these vulnerable groups are concerned, and they deal with the participation of these people at the decision-making level. Equity is also widespread in this these goals, and non-discrimination. See, whatever you have already found to be correct under Preamble of UN Charter 1945, they are with you. They are with you. They are all actually living laws. So one should understand human rights from a different dimensions are concerned. See, human rights are supposed to be taught on the basis of universal applications that has to be looked into. And on the other hand, these goals are actually running with self-determination. As I said, it is the right of the people to determine their own sovereignty as such. So in this context, of course, these goals have got their own positive replies, no doubt in it. Along with the continuity of these positive replies, there are some criticisms leveled against to these goals. So what kind of criticisms you have? Kindly have a look on. These goals do not go far enough. These the goals ignore underlying inequality in the international system. The goals are top-down and bureaucratic, ignoring the local context as such. They are not understanding local issues, especially in India. It's very difficult. See, how can you transfer or incorporate such kind of goals at the municipal level? As first of all, you have to understand how people are actually living over here. What are their issues, challenges? How, in what manner these issues should be overcome? This is very, very important. That has to be looked into whenever you want to go for implementing these goals at the municipal level as such. And moreover, these goals are actually wishes, not goals, and they do have their own lack of data as such. This is what as many as critics have already been criticized these goals are concerned. So then what kind of a positive aspects you have when you are actually running with these goals? It is highly ambitious and collective. Along with the continuity of ambitious and collectivism, they deal with universal goals, specific strong commitment to end poverty. So how will you overcome poverty? country like India. So this is very, very important. Poverty, it is there everywhere. Even in Mahabharata, you can find poverty. When Ashwatthama used to drink milk powder, he asked a fundamental question to his mother. What is this? Isn't it? Then she started crying and shared her views. It was because of poverty. I was just giving you, milk powder rather than a real milk as such. Even in Ramayana, in fact, when Shabari met Rama, she couldn't find North Indian or South Indian food. She had just wild fruit and gave to Rama and worshipped Rama as such. So that is there. Even after 100 years, you are going to talk on these issues. See, discourses on human rights are never ending. This is what I have learned a lot. Even after 100 years, you are going to talk on human rights. Maybe my son or daughter, they are going to talk on the same issues even after certain time as such. So that's why, see, at least as long as you are living as a human being, so long you have to understand and resolve your issues, because you are not living alone. You are living with many. You should understand that karma, the kriya and karma, they should be known to you. Otherwise, it's very difficult. Karma for others. So that has to be one whole duty towards others is to be looked into. Otherwise, it's very difficult to be understood. On the other hand, you have to give voice to the voiceless. That's very, very important. The fruits of justice should be shared to the people who are left out in the society. So that's why you have come here to understand the human rights. Fruits of justice should be shared to the people who are left out in the society. You have to give voice to the voiceless. This is what Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution of India has already been outspoken. So on the right to freedom of speech and expression as such. And on the other hand, first of all, you have to be tolerant, and you have to accept the situation, sometimes maybe widespread. This is what Swami Vivekananda has already been emphasized. He says our religion has taught us not only tolerance but also acceptance, that education shall be given to the people who are more emphasizing on different perspectives are concerned. So in this context, if rather I would say, obviously, no doubt in it, whether these goals are feasible or not, there's a lot of scope to understand them, isn't it? See, along with the continued these criticisms, there are some more criticisms you can have a look on. These goals are actually contradicting to grow in future. This is what they say. Then growth does not reduce poverty. That's also one of the new challenging issues we have. Then inequality gets ignored in these goals. Inequality. Then big drivers of poverty are left unaddressed. The mismeasurement of the poverty. How will you measure the poverty? It's very difficult to be measure the poverty. As only thing is that you can have some data to work on some issues. So yeah, measuring poverty is not at all a possible solution as such. So that's why the demographic poverty and environmental problems are among the most noticeable, complex and widespread issues in the implementation of the strategy of sustainable development goals are concerned. So that's why there are as many as challenges to understand these goals are concerned. See, when you are actually running with these goals with a reference to Indian context, I have come across with some critical aspects. Please have a look on. See, India accounts for the largest number of people living below the international poverty, with 30%, I mean 800 million of its population living under $1.90 per day. pulling this massive population out of poverty will be a nearly impossible task for India without international support. Without international support, it would be virtually impossible to retain these goals at the municipal level as such. A new study estimates that implementing these goals in India by 2030 will cost around 14.4 billion US dollar. It will be a big balance for Niti Aayog to monitor and provide innovative solutions to achieve the massive targets of these goals. India's huge geographical as well as cultural diversity can also be a challenge to achieve the goals of sustainability, because the needs and requirements of various regions are varied. They'll be focused the context of specific observations. And moreover, if rather I would say, as far as the laws are concerned, India's federal structure and differences among the states regarding the development indicators can also create challenges. But if channelized properly in terms of competitive federalism, can also turn into an important tool to achieve the goals of the sustainable development as such. So these are the few aspects we have. See, apart from these few aspects, look at in the context of India, with a huge population and social challenges like a massive poverty, hunger, malnutrition, acute gender discrimination, and low per capita income, these goals are nearly impossible to achieve. However, India can play an important role in achieving sustainable development goals, because India is actually known for its international relations. Look at Panchashil principles, and they were actually widespread by Nehruji, and non-alignment movement of Mahatma Gandhiji. They should go hand in hand when you are actually running with the India's foreign policy as such. See, what is to be done and what ought not to be done, it is left to the government. Nobody is actually compelling to sign on the record. I mean, international records are concerned. You should understand when you are going for signing on the records, put out a fire before it spreads, or think before it, or else you should have been known. Touch me not is actually better than use me wise. So in this context, that should have been looked into to understand these issues. No doubt in it. In fact, these goals can be treated as ideal goals, which can act as a guideline for national and international governments to measure their success in achieving inclusive and sustainable development as such. So with these few remarks and observations, of course, no doubt, I have come up with so many slides to give some inputs to understand the sustainable goals. We have international environmental cooperation that has to be looked into, and dialogues between South and North, that is there. Okay, then Kyoto had taken place to understand the clash between soft law and hard law. That's in your academic level. When the people who are actually standing before the court, you should understand what is the difference between soft law and hard law, how in what manner soft law and hard law, they should go hand in hand. We talk many things on state responsibility. If a state violates international obligations, then the state responsibility would come into picture. This is what we have come across with many theoretical observations and practical implications to understand. So these are the major conventions we have to understand the relationship between right to development and the environment as such. Right to development. I must share with you right? Sustainable development, that itself is a conflict resolution. Conflict resolution, without which it would be virtually impossible to understand the relationship between environment and the right to development, which is highly widespread through human rights discourses are concerned. So that's why please go through all these covenants, which are highly impressive to understand. Along with the continuity of these covenants, you have some philosophical foundations which are highly widespread. It could be, utilitarianism, or what shall I say, the legal positivism, American realism you have, Scandinavian realism you have, anthropological approach you have, economic approach, Karl Marxism you have, Edward Said Orientalism you have, then postmodernism you have. So all these philosophical foundations have come in. They are answerable to your queries, no doubt in it. And these are the 6 important areas of inequality in the distribution of goods and opportunity and rights. Please have a look on. And sustainable development, it was widespread through Stockholm Conference in 1972. Later on, it was actually emphasized on the basis of many factors, like Rio de Janeiro Earth Summit, as many as declarations came in with a view to understand sustainable development. Of course, no doubt, change the politics, not the climate. This is very, very important. Everything is with you. Everything is on the basis of religion and the politics. See, it is because of these reasons, it's very difficult to be answerable to the younger generation as such. That's why, especially in India, we have established National Green Tribunal to understand. These tribunals have come in on the basis of the humanity, which is highly widespread at the international level as such, that has to be looked into. On the other hand, Indian judiciary has come out with as many as principles on par with the right to development as such. Look at these cases, and then then rural litigation case, Narmada Bachao Andolan's case, then this going, and then Indian Council of Legal Action and Union of India. There were all, my colleagues might have known from a different dimensions are concerned. I don't want to deal. Just I wanted to show you how in what manner that the environment and right to development should go hand in hand. And see, democracy is one. So how in what manner democracy should be taught whenever you want to go for understanding right to development and the environment. As these are the commissions we have. The 3 pillars of sustainability. They are actually based on economic, environment, social sustainability. That is very, very important. Country like India as such, isn't it? See, whenever you want to go for understanding Indian law, you have to understand how people are living over here. What are their issues, challenges that has to be looked into. Otherwise, it's very difficult to be flexible with this. So these are the main challenges we have: cross-border, multi-generational issues. We have multi-sectoral challenges expressed by developmental goals. So many goals are there. No, we have 17 goals established in 2015, isn't it? So how are they actually reachable in future? 2030 as such. So during these years, how, in what manner you are going to work on poverty and reduce the hunger, and all this shall also be looked into. See, contradiction of growth. We have growth does not reduce poverty. That's when one of the big challenges we have. Inequality gets ignored as compared to these goals are concerned. So there are many challenges and issues. See, at the end of this session, I would like to share very little. I won't take much time. There is a weak record of ratification. So what states do? They'll go there and sign on the record, come home happily without ratification. That's one of the major issues and challenges we have. The lack of national implementation legislation. This is what Article 253 of the Constitution of India is very clear. to incorporate or transform such kind of international law at the municipal level based on the specific adoption theory as such. Then lack of awareness, understanding by the authorities, different legal systems all over the world. That is the lack of resources, lack of commitment, manual structure, training, and lack of international enforcement mechanisms we have. Though we have had more than 17 specialized agencies of United Nations organization, even at the regional level, we have Organization of American States, Organization of African Union, OECD you have, SARC you have, then OPEC you have, then European Union you have. Although we have had all these agencies, the flagrant violation of human rights are actually going on, and we are just documenting and researching every day and night without stopping, flagrant violation of human rights. So with these a few observations, I'll stop here to understand the all these. Okay, let's see. Your COVID-19 may change the environmental laws in future. Let's have a look on. Is and hope for the best. And I must share with you whatever the goals in which we are running at the international level are really highly implicative to understand. So with these observations, I stop here. Okay, I'll look forward some questions in the. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Maruthi, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maruthi sir.
ನಮಸ್ತೆ ನಮಸ್ತೆ ಹೇಳಿ ಸರ್.
ನಮಸ್ತೆ, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದೀರಾ?
ನಾನು ಮನೇಲಿ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಹೌದೌದು, ನಾನು ಇಲ್ಲ ಮನೇಲಿ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಹೌದಾ, ನಾನು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀನಿ ಸರ್, ತೊಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ.
ಹೇಳಿ ಸರ್.
ಯಾವುದು
ಹೇಳಿ ಸರ್.
ಸರ್ ಟೀ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ?
ಹೌದೌದು, ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ.
ಸರ್ ಹೇಳ್ಬಿಡೋಣ.
ಸೇಮ್ ಪಾಸ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲ,
ಹೋಗಿ ಟೀ ಹಾಕೊಂಡ್ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಡೋಣ.
ಹಾ,
ಟೀ ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಇದೆ ಸರ್.
ಓಕೆ, ತೊಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾನು ಲೈನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಸರ್. ನೋ ಪ್ರಾಬ್ಲಮ್ ಸರ್. ಓಕೆ, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ವೆರಿ ಮಚ್ ಸರ್.
ಮಾರುತಿ ಸರ್.
ಹೇಗಿದ್ದೀರಿ ಸರ್? ಆರಾಮಾಗಿದ್ದೀರಾ?
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಸರ್.
ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದೇನೆ. ಏನ್ ಮುದ್ದುರಾಜ್, ಏನ್ ಸಮಾಚಾರ?
ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಸರ್?
ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೀಯಾ? ತುಂಬಾನೇ ದಿವಸ ಆಯ್ತು, ನೋಡಕ್ ಆಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ.
ಹೌದು ಸರ್, ಎಕ್ಸಲೆಂಟ್.
ಸರ್ ಈಗ
ಹೇಗಿದ್ದೀರಿ?
ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಸರ್, ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದ್ದೀನಿ.
ಸರ್ ನಮಸ್ತೆ.
ಮುಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬರೋಣ.
ಹಾ ಸರ್.
ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಇದೆ ಈಗ.
11:45
ಬ್ರೇಕ್ ಇದೆ.
ಮತ್ತೆ
11:45 ಜಾಯಿನ್ ಮಾಡಿ.
ಓಕೆ ಸರ್. ಓಕೆ,
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು.
Maruthi sir, thank you.
Thank you.